Enterprise risk management: importance, practices, techniques, and implementation. Welcome to the Risk Management of Everything channel. On this channel, you will see videos on risk management and the application of risk management to diverse areas and sectors. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the notification button so you can be notified when we upload new videos. Thank you. This video discusses enterprise risk management, its implementation and core capabilities and implementation. In this video, you will understand the meaning of enterprise risk management, ERM, the importance of ERM, the difference between traditional risk management and ERM, 5 core capabilities for a successful ERM, tips for successful implementation of ERM, components of ERM, and ERM implementation. Now, let us start. Businesses must manage their risks to ensure their continuity and profitability. Moreover, managing risks is an essential part of running a business. So, if risk management exists in these organizations, what is the point of adopting and implementing enterprise risk management, ERM? What is enterprise risk management? Enterprise risk management, ERM, is a framework for managing organizational risk. Organizational risk is a broad term. It can encompass concerns ranging from ensuring employee safety and securing sensitive data to meeting statutory regulations and stopping financial fraud. Risk can be both internal, such as equipment malfunctions, or external, such as natural disasters. Risk varies from one organization to another. The fundamental elements of ERM are the assessment of significant risks and the implementation of suitable risk responses. Risk responses include acceptance or tolerance of risk, avoidance or termination of risk, risk transfer or sharing via insurance, a joint venture, and other arrangements, and reduction or mitigation of risk via internal control procedures or other risk prevention activities. Other important ERM concepts include the risk philosophy or risk strategy, risk culture and risk appetite. These are expressions of the attitude to risk in the organization and the amount of risk the organization is willing to take. These are essential elements of governance responsibility. Management responsibilities include the risk architecture or infrastructure, documentation of procedures or risk management protocols, training, monitoring, and reporting on risks and risk management activities. The reality is that companies think they are implementing ERM, but they are not. In practice, what we see often demonstrates a very limiting view of ERM, from maintaining a list of risks to summarizing risk responses, leaving many corporate leaders underwhelmed with its value contributed because of the speed of business and the ever-changing economic environment. ERM adds limited value in its immature state because it often leaves management with a list of risks and little insight into what to do next. ERM may increase risk awareness with management, the board of directors, and others in its various forms. However, it will not effectively drive decisions because it is not well integrated with the enterprise's decision-making processes. As a result, the risk is often an afterthought to strategy and risk management is an appendage to performance management. Companies can also accomplish many governance-related tasks by applying ERM with other operational elements in the current business environment. Benefits of enterprise risk management. No risk management process can create a risk-free environment. Rather, enterprise risk management enables management to operate more effectively in a business environment filled with fluctuating risks. There are 3 major benefits of ERM: improved business performance, increased organizational effectiveness, and better risk reporting. Enterprise risk management provides enhanced capability to 1. Align risk appetite and strategy. Risk appetite is the degree of risk, on a broad-based level, that a business is willing to accept in pursuit of its objectives. Management considers the business's risk appetite first in evaluating strategic alternatives and setting boundaries for downside risk. 2. Minimize operational surprises and losses. Businesses have enhanced capability to identify potential risk events, assess risks and establish responses, thereby reducing the occurrence of unpleasant surprises and associated costs or losses. 3. Enhance risk response decisions. ERM provides the rigor to identify and select alternative risk responses including risk avoidance, reduction, transfer, and acceptance. 4. Resources. A clear understanding of the risks facing a business can enhance the effective direction and use of management time and the business's resources to manage risk. 5. Identify and manage cross-enterprise risks. Every business faces several risks that affect different parts of the organization. The benefits of enterprise risk management are only optimized when an enterprise-wide approach is adopted, integrating the disparate approaches to risk management within a company. Integration can be effected in 3 ways: centralized risk reporting, the integration of risk transfer strategies, and the integration of risk management into the business processes of a business. Rather than being purely a defensive mechanism, it can be used as a tool to maximize opportunities. 6. Link growth, risk, and return. Businesses accept risk as part of wealth creation and preservation, and they expect return commensurate with risk. ERM provides an enhanced ability to identify and assess risks and establish acceptable levels of risk relative to potential growth and achievement of objectives. 7. Rationalize capital. More robust information on risk exposure allows management to assess overall capital needs more effectively and improve capital allocation. 8. Maximize opportunities. The very process of identifying risks can stimulate thinking and generate opportunities and threats. Responses need to be developed to seize these opportunities in the same way that responses are required to address identified threats to a business. Framework for understanding enterprise risk management. There are 5 frameworks for understanding ERM, including corporate governance, internal control, implementation, risk management process, and sources of risk. Let us discuss these 5 frameworks. Corporate governance. Corporate governance is required to ensure that the board of directors and management have established the appropriate organizational processes and corporate controls to measure and manage risk across the business. Examination of recent developments in corporate governance reveals that they form catalysts for and contribute to the current pressures on ERM. It explains the expectations that shareholders have of boards of directors. It explains the approaches companies have adopted to risk management and the extent of disclosure of risk management practice. Corporate governance now forms an essential component of enterprise risk management because it provides top-down monitoring and management. It places responsibility on the board for ensuring that appropriate systems and policies for risk management are in place. Good board practices and corporate governance are crucial for effective ERM. Internal control. Creating and maintaining a sound internal control system are required to safeguard shareholders' investment and a business's assets. Examination of internal controls provides an understanding of what should be controlled and how. Internal controls are a subset of corporate governance, and risk management is a subset of internal controls. Risk management aims to facilitate the effective and efficient operation of a business, improve internal and external reporting, and assist with compliance with laws and regulations. The aim is to accomplish this by identifying and assessing risks facing the business and responding to them to either remove or reduce them or, where appropriate, transfer them to a third party where it is economical to do so. Implementation of enterprise risk management. To maximize the benefit of the ERM process, specific resources should be allocated to implement internal controls with sufficient knowledge and experience. Being part of a business's internal control processes, implementation of risk management can be resourced from within a business or be supported by external consultants. Both are acceptable approaches. Whichever route is selected, the parameters of any study must be mapped, communicated and agreed upon so that the time frame, resources, costs, inputs and deliverables are understood. Risk management process. The risk management process should articulate processes, inputs, outputs, constraints, and enablers. Exploring the mechanisms for implementing a risk management process is to break it down into its parts and examine what each part should contribute to the whole. This suggests that the risk management process involves analysis, identification, assessment, evaluation, and treatment of risks. While activities follow a largely sequential pattern, it may be a highly iterative process over time. As new risks are identified, the earlier identification and assessment process should be reviewed, and the sequential process is repeated to implement risk response actions. Sources of risk. The risk management process is worthless without a clear understanding of the sources of risk and how they should be managed. The framework breaks the source of risk down into two key elements labeled internal processes and the business operating environment. A way of examining the sources of business risk is to consider that it emanates from two sources, from within a business, relating to its actions, and from the environment it operates over which it has no control. The two sources of business risk are internal processes and the business operating environment. Risks emanating from these two sources can be used to develop a traditional pest analysis, an abbreviation for the external influences called political, economic, social, and technological. Enterprise Risk Management Strategy. An ERM strategy can provide answers to three basic business questions. 1. Should we do it, aligned with business strategy, risk appetite, culture, values, and ethics? 2. Can we do it, people, processes, structure, and technology capabilities? 3. Did we do it, assessment of expected results, continuous learning, and a robust system of checks and balances? The ERM framework is essential regardless of the institution's size or how it wishes to categorize its risks. ERM framework will assist companies' management and boards of directors to manage risks of their organizations effectively. Sound ERM framework must address a firm's critical risk management questions. ERM framework will help management and boards of directors answer the following 8 critical business questions. 1. What are our business strategy and associated risks, coverage? 2. How much risk are we willing to take, risk appetite? 3. How do we govern risk-taking, culture, governance, and policies? 4. How do we capture the information we need to manage these risks, risk data and infrastructure? 5. How do we control the risks, control environment? 6. How do we know the size of the various risks, measurement and evaluation? 7. What are we doing about these risks, response? 8. What possible scenarios could hurt us, and how are various risks interrelated, stress testing? These 8 questions are aimed at integrating key competencies into an organization's ERM framework. Let us examine components of the ERM framework. 1. Business strategy and risk coverage. Risk management must function in the context of business strategy and answer the fundamental question, what are our business strategy and associated risks? Before an institution can articulate its risk appetite, it must first determine its goals and objectives, that is a business strategy. The institution must define what it wants to achieve in markets, geographies, segments, products, and earnings. From there, the institution assesses the risk implied in that strategy and determines the level of risk it is willing to assume in executing that strategy. Regardless of a specific business strategy, a firm is susceptible to numerous risks, including credit, liquidity, strategic, reputation, market, operational, compliance and regulatory, financial, and capital adequacy risks. 2. Risk appetite. Risk appetite is the amount of risk, that is volatility of expected results, an organization is willing to accept to pursue a desired financial performance, that is returns. Risk appetite and tolerance concepts are often used interchangeably, but they have distinct differences in meaning. Risk appetite represents the acceptance of volatility an institution is willing to assume in executing its business strategy. Risk tolerance refers to daily operational limits developed within an organization's stated risk appetite, for example, concentration limits. It is essential for management and the board of directors to understand the critical links among strategy, business plans, and risk. A risk appetite statement is one tool that facilitates this linkage. In this context, the risk management function is an integral part of the institution's overall strategies and specific business objectives, an essential part of the institution's success, returns, and value creation. 3. Culture, governance and policies. Culture is the most crucial aspect of a good ERM competency. Culture can be described as what people do when they are not being watched. Policies express the risk appetite of an organization to the public. They describe to all stakeholders what the company is willing to do and not to do. The risk appetite statement is executed through policies, stating what to do, and procedures, stating how to do them. Culture, governance, and policies collectively help an organization to manage its risk-taking activities. 4. Risk data and infrastructure. The management and boards of directors undertake their risk management responsibilities through a deep understanding of its risk profile. The risk data and infrastructure refer to how the information is collected, integrated, analyzed, and translated into a cohesive story. This area is probably the most challenging aspect of ERM. A sound risk management infrastructure requires a highly robust management information system. 5. Control environment. The internal control environment is one of the essential tools in the management toolbox for managing risks. Internal controls help reduce the level of inherent risk to a level acceptable to management. The system of internal controls includes culture, governance, policies, preventive and detective controls, and scenario planning. Management relies on internal controls to manage residual risk to an acceptable level. Residual risk is the level of inherent risks reduced by internal controls. Building an effective internal control environment allows management to manage what can be controlled. 6. Measurement and evaluation. The management and boards of directors must manage the company's risks. The science and art of measurement in ERM is about concluding which risks are significant and which ones are not, and where to invest time, energy, and other resources. To accomplish the goal of measurement and evaluation, an institution may adopt a simple model of color rating, green, yellow, and red, to a highly sophisticated risk-adjusted return on capital, RAROC, or perhaps a middle-of-the-road failure mode and effects analysis, FMEA, model. Regardless of the method used, measurement and evaluation help boards and management answer the question, so what? The measurement and evaluation process must include internal controls and determine how well the risks can be managed. 7. Risk response strategies for enterprise risk management. Organizations can use the following 5 risk response strategies to manage their risks. 1. Risk avoidance, the elimination of risks or activities that can negatively impact the organization's assets. For example, the cancellation or stoppage of a proposed production or product line. 2. Risk reduction, the mitigation or limitation of the severity of losses. For example, management can plan frequent visits to their major suppliers to identify potential problems early. 3. Risk transfer, entails transferring of risks to third parties, including insurance companies and other third parties. 4. Risk retention, it entails acknowledging the identified risks and being willing to accept their consequences. Typically, any loss from a risk not covered or avoided is an example of risk acceptance. 5. Risk sharing, involves accepting the risk and collaborating with others to share responsibility for risky activities. Partnering with another company to share the risk associated with a part of the project is advantageous when the other company has the experience the project team does not have. If a risk event occurs, the partner company absorbs all or part of the event's negative impact. 8. Scenario planning and stress testing. The art of ERM is the ability to answer the question, what can go wrong, and create deviation from expected outcomes. In this regard, the management must address known, knowable, and unknowable risks. Scenario planning and stress testing are tools that focus on the knowable and, perhaps, some unknowable risks. Robust scenario planning and stress testing are beneficial in strengthening a firm's ERM framework. Core capabilities of a successful enterprise risk management. Here are the 5 core capabilities of a sound ERM. 1. Risk insight and transparency. This is an ongoing effort to clearly define the organization's risk and return trade-off to help guide business decisions. Risk transparency should include factors such as market threats, potential operational crises, and legal issues. Ideally, the business should be as proactive as possible. Instead of looking at current and past risks, it should consider those scenarios in the future. Here, the business will benefit from closely integrating the risk management and business continuity efforts and using industry best practices that include in-depth stress testing and rating methodologies. 2. Risk appetite and strategy. Establishing a specific risk appetite and strategy requires leadership to help create a risk appetite statement and integrate them into every level of the organization. Risk appetite metrics can help an organization set its strategy to guide the business and individual departments on aligning with the risk appetite statement. 3. Risk-related decisions and processes. Through a successful ERM program, the risk becomes embedded in all levels of the organization and guides the company's processes and decisions. This includes mergers and acquisitions, compliance and conduct, and people and performance management. 4. Risk organization and governance. This segment involves questioning and identifying where financial responsibility for risk lies and the structure and staffing of the risk organization. Again, true ERM requires dedicated resources. Successful organizations will prioritize risk management by establishing a chief risk officer or similar position and leaders from each department who take ownership of risk. 5. Risk culture and performance transformation. Here, the organization should take steps to introduce programs and initiatives that reinforce a strong risk culture. This is where the ERM program lays out specific actions, identifies team members, and sets milestones to help manage risk and monitor it over time. Tips for successful implementation of enterprise risk management. ERM differs from traditional approaches to risk oversight that focus on managing silos or distinct pockets of risks. ERM emphasizes a top-down, holistic view of critical risks potentially affecting an organization's ability to achieve its objectives. Implementing ERM in an organization should not be burdensome. It is not just about protecting the organization's tangible and financial assets. Instead, ERM focuses on the enterprise-wide risks that can derail the business strategy. Here are 6 tips to help organizations implement ERM effectively. 1. Define what the organization wants to achieve with ERM. It is necessary to clearly define the advantages the organization expects from risk management before implement ERM. Examples of ERM benefits include improved decision-making abilities, a strategy to deal with potential compliance issues, and the development of appropriate backup strategies. By defining what the company wants to achieve, it will be easy to determine how to implement ERM effectively and what results in it will generate. 2. Adequate planning. Before implementing ERM, the company should thoroughly plan the scope and strategy of the ERM. An essential part of the planning stage is to set priorities. Which areas of the business have the highest priority, and which have a lower priority? The emerged answers would determine areas of focus and how to plan for risk response. Possible risk response strategies include risk tolerance, risk avoidance, and risk mitigation. The activity's priority level will determine which strategy the company chooses to develop in each case. Considering that the scope and priorities can change over time, the company should adjust its ERM strategy accordingly. The ERM strategy must be updated regularly because business processes are evolving much faster than ever before. Another essential part of the planning process is to decide who will be responsible for implementing specific parts of the ERM. Responsibilities can be distributed among existing staff, or new staff can be hired for ERM purposes. 3. Set up risk response strategies. The ERM can be implemented after the planning. Implementation of ERM consists of defining the most critical risks the company is likely to face and generating appropriate risk responses to deal with them. The company can choose among the 4 fundamental risk response strategies: risk avoidance, risk transference, mitigation, and acceptance. The response strategy selected can be partly determined by the predicted financial impact of a specific risk if it occurs. 4. Set up risk monitoring. After identifying the most critical risk and setting up risk response strategies to deal with them, the next step is to measure and monitor risk development effectively. Some risk scenarios develop gradually, and hence it can be beneficial to monitor the development since it allows the company to react before too much damage occurs. Risk monitoring should be supported with a rapid response strategy for rapidly developing risks, such as cyber attacks or technological failure. Risk monitoring should be one of the primary responsibilities of the staff appointed with implementing ERM. 5. Adjust the risk management strategy. As the ERM implementation commences, the company will learn from actual cases of risks within the organization. The theory and practice of ERM can be different, and the company should learn from its experiences to improve the enterprise risk management strategy. Optimal learning from experience depends on how well the organization analyzes and reports on events that require ERM. This kind of reporting should be another responsibility of the staff appointed with implementing ERM. The organization should review ERM regularly to learn from and assess its ERM strategy. 6. Create a risk-aware culture within the organization. All should be educated on ERM implementation and how to take responsibility for risk management. An excellent way to create a risk-aware culture is by holding training events about risk management, sending out risk newsletters, and giving rewards and recognition to employees who identify risks or help deal with them. This is much more effective than performing risk management as a leadership initiative by some company staff. Components of enterprise risk management. When developing an ERM program, it is essential to take a holistic approach to mitigate risks across the entire organization. ERM consists of 8 components. Here are the components of ERM. 1. Establish business objectives. Before developing an ERM, establish the business goals. Management should work together with the board to establish the organization's goals, missions, and metrics for success. These 3 can then be refined and aligned with the company's risk appetite. 2. Assess the risk. The foundation of ERM strategies depends on risk assessment. To conduct a risk assessment, the company must determine the likelihood and impact of risks on its risk register. 3. Respond to risk. After identifying the risks, develop a response that will work to ensure the business achieves its objectives. Some of the appropriate responses for different risks include reducing, accepting, avoiding, and sharing. For all responses, there should be pre-approved actions for managing the risk. 4. Develop the internal environment. Create internal policies that will help to eliminate risk. The policies should promote integrity and efficiency in the work culture. Involve all the relevant stakeholders in the creation and implementation of the internal policies. 5. Identify events. After determining the risk appetite and metrics for measuring success, review the events that could make the business fail to achieve its goals. Whether internal or external, the events should be classified as either risks or opportunities and then aligned to the business's overall strategy. 6. Control activities. To identify events and respond to risks, there must be policies and procedures to guide the company's risk management framework. The policies and procedures form the control activities based on the type of event or risk identified. 7. Information and communication. Information flow across departments should ensure employees carry out their jobs properly to meet the overall business objectives. Information should also be communicated to employees in particular roles to ensure they adhere to the best practices already established in the company. 8. Monitoring activities. Monitoring activity should be a continuous process to keep abreast with the changing risks that the business faces. Monitoring should be done regularly by either internal or external auditors. Questions to consider when implementing ERM. Here are questions that should be considered when implementing ERM by organizations. 1. What are the main components and drivers of the business strategy? 2. What internal factors or events could impede or derail each of these components? 3. What could external events impede and derail each of the components? 4. Does the company have suitable systems and processes to address its internal and external risks? The output of an ERM process. The goal of an ERM process is to generate an understanding of the top risks that management collectively believes are the current most critical risks to the strategic success of the enterprise. Most organizations prioritize what management believes to be the enterprise's top 10 risks. Generally, the top 10 risks presentation to the board focuses on central risk themes, with more granular details monitored by management. For example, a key risk theme for a business might be attracting and retaining key employees. The board of directors may discuss that risk issue at a high level. At the same time, management focuses on the unique challenges of attracting and retaining talent in specific areas of the organization, for example, IT, sales, and operations. With knowledge of the most significant risks on the horizon for the company, management then seeks to evaluate whether the current way the organization is managing those risks is sufficient and effective. In some cases, management may determine that they and the board are willing to accept risk, while for other risks, they seek to respond in ways to reduce or avoid the potential risk exposure. When thinking about responses to risks, it is essential to think about both responses to prevent a risk from occurring and responses to minimize the impact should the risk event occur. Monitoring and communicating top risks with key risk indicators, KRIs. While the core output of an ERM process is the prioritization of an organization's most significant risks and how the organization manages those risks, the ERM process also emphasizes the importance of keeping a close eye on those risks by using key risk indicators, KRIs. Organizations are increasingly enhancing their management dashboard systems by including key risk indicators, KRIs, linked to each of the firm's top risks identified through an ERM process. These KRI metrics help management and the board keep an eye on risk trends over time. The leadership of ERM. Given that the goal of ERM is to create a top-down, enterprise view of risks to the organization, responsibility for setting the tone and leadership for ERM resides with executive management and the board of directors. They are the ones who have the enterprise view, and they are viewed as being ultimately responsible for understanding, managing, and monitoring the most significant risks affecting the enterprise. Top management is responsible for designing and implementing the enterprise risk management process for the organization. They are the ones to determine what process should be in place and how it should function, and they are the ones tasked with keeping the process active and alive. The board of directors' role is to provide risk oversight by 1. Understanding and approving management's ERM process and 2. Overseeing the risks identified by the ERM process to ensure management's risk-taking actions are within the stakeholders' appetite for risk-taking. Conclusion. Enterprise risk management and the implementation of enterprise risk management have been discussed in this video. Enterprise risk management, ERM, is a framework for managing organizational risk. Risk varies from one organization to another. The fundamental elements of ERM are the assessment of significant risks and the implementation of suitable risk responses. There are three major benefits of ERM: improved business performance, increased organizational effectiveness, and better risk reporting. There are 5 frameworks for understanding ERM, including corporate governance, internal control, implementation, risk management process, and sources of risk. I hope the video is educative and beneficial to you. Please post your response below in the comments section. If this video has been educative and beneficial to you, then give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Thank you for seeing the Risk Management of Everything videos. We love to hear from you. Please post your comments and questions in the comment section down below. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe to our channel, Risk Management of Everything channel, and press the notification button so you can be notified when we upload new videos. Thank you.